Great, another burden. My mother snapped at our fancy Friday dinner. The evening I told my family I was pregnant, my father did not even look up from his plate. He just nodded and added, "We wished you were never born, and now there will be 2 of you." My sister rolled her eyes. My brother kept texting. Nobody cared. I smiled, I stood up, and I walked out into the freezing Seattle's rain like nothing happened. Because what I had set in motion that very morning before I ever drove to their expensive house was about to dismantle every single lie they had built with my money, my savings, and my silence. They just did not know it yet. But before I tell you what happened at that dinner, I need to quickly take you back 11 years to the day my father committed a crime and I became the bank for his fake life. Before I go on with it, please take a quick moment to like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely connect with this family drama. Drop your location and what time it is where you are right now. I absolutely love seeing exactly where you all are tuning in from today. The orange flames danced in the rusty metal fire pit. It was a cold Tuesday evening in Seattle, late October 2023. Rain softly hit the roof of my porch, but the fire was safe under the cover. I stood there shivering, holding a heavy blue photo album. On the front, in peeling gold letters, it said, "The Copeland family." I opened it one last time. There we were. Mom, Dad, my older sister Sutton, my younger brother Ledger, and me. We looked so happy. Everyone wore matching white shirts, standing on a sunny beach, smiling brightly at the camera. I ripped the page out and dropped it into the fire. The paper curled, the smiling faces melted into black, and then it all turned to ash. People in our town always thought we were perfect, but pictures lie. Let me take you back to how this all started. It was Friday, April 12th, 2022. We were sitting inside my parents' big, beautiful house on Mercer Island. The house had huge glass windows facing Lake Washington. My mother, Blythe, loved this house. She loved hosting dinners so her friends could see her expensive plates and shiny hardwood floors. That night, the dining table was full. The smell of roast beef, garlic mashed potatoes, and hot bread filled the room. "Sutton, honey, tell everyone about your amazing news," Mom said. She leaned forward, smiling so big her eyes crinkled at the corners. Sutton smiled and flipped her blonde hair over her shoulder. "Well, I got a $2,000 bonus at the marketing firm today, and I bought those designer shoes I've been talking about for weeks." Dad, Vance, raised his heavy glass of red wine. "That is my girl, always winning, always making us proud." I sat at the end of the table, slowly cutting my meat. I was 29 years old, a senior financial analyst at Vanguard Trust Group in downtown Seattle. I managed millions of dollars every day. That very morning, I had caught a massive error and saved my company from losing a lot of money, but nobody at this table asked how my day went. "Pass the salt, Elowen," Ledger said. He did not even look up from his phone screen. I slid the salt shaker across the smooth table. "I finished a really big project today too," I said quietly, looking at my dad. Mom sighed. It was a short, sharp sound that cut right through the room. "Elowen, please, let your sister have her moment. You always do this. You just sit there with a long face, trying to take the light away from others." I swallowed hard. The food in my mouth suddenly felt like dry sand. "I wasn't trying to steal anything, Mom. I just wanted to share." Dad put his glass down hard. Thump. "Don't argue with your mother. When Sutton succeeds, she brings good energy into this house. You just sit behind a computer screen all day. Try to be more positive." I looked down at my plate, my cheeks burning. What Dad did not know, what none of them knew, was that his bank account had been completely empty 2 years ago. His old consulting business had failed. To the outside world, Vance Copeland was a rich, retired manager. In reality, he could not even pay for the electricity keeping the lights on in this big Mercer Island house. With every single month, on the 1st, I quietly transferred $5,200 into his account. I set it up through an old, complicated trust system set as a blind family trust that automatically paid the taxes, so he thought it was just his past investments paying off tax-free. I paid the $3,100 mortgage. I paid for Mom's fancy grocery trips to Whole Foods. I even paid the $250 for Ledger's monthly car insurance. I did it because I loved them. I did it because I wanted Dad to keep his pride in front of his friends. I always thought if I quietly fixed their problems, maybe one day they would look at me the exact same way they looked at Sutton. But tonight, like every night, I was just a shadow at the dinner table. "Anyway," Mom continued, turning her shoulder toward Sutton, blocking me out, "we absolutely must go shopping on Sunday to celebrate your bonus." "I'd love to," Sutton said. She glanced at me with a tiny smirk. "Elowen, you can come too. We always need someone to carry the bags. She laughed. Ledger laughed with her. I forced a smile. A tight, fake smile that hurt my face. I have to work on Sunday. Of course you do, Dad muttered, shaking his head. Always working, never smiling. You really bring the mood down, Elowen. I gripped my cloth napkin under the table. My fingernails dug deep into my palms. It hurt, but the heavy ache in my chest was so much worse. Why wasn't I enough? Why was my hard work ignored, while Sutton buying a pair of shoes was treated like a miracle? I did not say anything back. I just nodded, picked up my fork, and kept eating in silence. In my mind I was still holding on to hope. I thought that maybe they just needed time. I thought I just needed to try a little harder to earn their love. I had no idea that a few months later, they would break my heart so badly that this quiet, patient version of Elowen would disappear forever. 5 months passed. It was Tuesday, September 10th, 2022. I sat at my desk on the 42nd floor of the Vanguard Trust Group building. Outside my large glass window, the gray Seattle clouds were heavy with rain. Inside, my office was completely quiet except for the fast click-click-click of my keyboard. My dual computer screens glowed brightly. On the left screen, I had the corporate accounts I managed for my job. On the right screen, I had a private hidden file. It was labeled, account hashtag 88842-B, Copeland Family Maintenance. I clicked on the digital ledger. I watched the numbers carefully. Date, 09/01/2022. Transfer, $5,200. Note, monthly living expenses. I rubbed my tired eyes. Just yesterday, my dad Vance had called me. He sounded so proud and loud on the phone. Elowen, my old investments are doing great. The bank just cleared an extra $4,000 for me. Your mother and I are going to get the roof fixed on the Mercer Island house. He did not know that the bank was actually me. I had moved that $4,000 from my own personal savings account into his secret trust fund. I was working 60 hours a week, eating cheap sandwiches for lunch, and wearing a 3-year-old coat, just so my parents could live like rich people. I closed the banking window on my computer. Then, I unzipped my black leather purse and pulled out a small, glossy piece of paper. It was a black and white ultrasound picture. I gently touched the tiny white blur on the paper with my finger. I was 10 weeks pregnant. My heart felt heavy, but also full of a strange, warm love. The baby's father, a man named Judson I had dated for 2 years, had packed his bags and left the moment I told him the news. He said he was not ready for a family, so it was just me and this tiny little baby now. I felt a tear drop onto my cheek. I quickly wiped it away. I was terrified of being a single mother, but I also felt a small spark of hope. Maybe this will change things, I thought. Maybe when Mom and Dad find out they are going to have their first grandchild, they will finally look at me with love. Maybe a baby will bring our family together. I put the ultrasound picture carefully back into my purse. There was a family dinner planned for this coming Friday. I decided I would tell them then. Friday, September 14th, 2022, arrived quickly. I drove my old silver Honda Civic up the long curved driveway of my parents' house. The rain was pouring down, making the dark green trees look almost black. I parked behind my sister Sutton's brand new shiny white BMW. I took a deep breath, holding my purse tightly to my chest, and walked inside. The house smelled like lemon floor polish and roasted chicken. I walked into the dining room. The crystal chandelier sparkled above the table. Mom, Dad, Sutton, and Ledger were already sitting down, laughing loudly. "Oh, Elowen, you're late," Mom said. She did not smile. She just pointed to an empty chair at the far corner of the table. "Sit down, the chicken is getting cold." "Traffic was bad on the I-90 bridge," I said softly, taking my seat. "Well, you need to manage your time better," Dad said, cutting his chicken. "Listen, everyone, stop eating for a second. Sutton has something very important to share." My older sister smiled. She looked perfect, as always, wearing a bright red silk blouse. She held up her wine glass. "I found it," Sutton announced, her eyes shining. "I found the perfect house in Bellevue. It has 4 bedrooms, a huge backyard, and a beautiful modern kitchen. It costs $1.2 million. Mom gasped and clapped her hands together. "Oh, Sutton, that is wonderful news. Bellevue is such a high-class area." "There is just one problem," Sutton said, looking down and pretending to look sad. "The bank needs a $200,000 down payment. I only have $50,000 saved up. I might lose the house." The room went quiet. I took a sip of my water. I knew Sutton made good money, but she spent it all on designer clothes and expensive trips. Then Dad smiled a huge, proud smile. He reached over and patted Sutton's hand. "Do not worry about that, sweetheart. Dad said confidently. Your mother and I have been doing very well with our investments lately. The money keeps coming in every month. We will give you the remaining $150,000 for the down payment. I stopped chewing. My fork froze in the air. My heart started to beat so fast it hurt my chest. What did he just say? Dad's accounts did not have $150,000. I knew that for a fact. He had exactly $12,000 left in the trust I secretly managed. The only way he could get $150,000 was if he took out a massive loan against this very house, the house I was secretly paying the mortgage on. If he took out that loan, the monthly payments would triple. And who would have to pay that? Me. They were going to use my hidden money, my sweat, and my endless hours of work to buy Sutton a luxury house. Dad, I said, my voice was shaking. Are you sure that is a smart financial move right now? Mom slammed her hand on the table. The glasses rattled. Eloin, Mom yelled, her face turning red. Why must you ruin everything? Your sister is buying a house. We are celebrating. You are always so jealous of her success. I sat there, my hands trembling under the table. My purse, with the little ultrasound picture inside, rested against my leg. The air in the room felt thick and suffocating. I looked at my family. None of them were smiling at me. They were all glaring at me, annoyed that I had spoken at all. I realized right then that I had to tell them my news. I had to know, once and for all, if they cared about me even a little bit. I took a deep breath, preparing to speak. I looked at their annoyed faces. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I reached into my black purse. My shaking fingers found the small glossy paper. I pulled out the ultrasound picture and placed it gently on the glass table, right next to my water glass. I am pregnant, I said softly, but my voice was clear. I am going to have a baby. For 3 long seconds, the room went completely dead. The only sound was the heavy rain hitting the large dining room windows. Sutton rolled her eyes, let out a loud sigh, and crossed her arms. Ledger did not even look up from his phone. Mom looked at the small black and white picture. Then, she looked at me. Her face did not soften. Instead, her lips twisted into a cruel, ugly line. Great, Mom snapped, her voice full of disgust. Another burden. Your sister is buying a house. That is what we are celebrating this month. We do not have time for your attention-seeking drama. A cold, sharp pain shot through my chest, making it hard to breathe. It is not drama, Mom, I whispered. This is your grandchild. Dad threw his cloth napkin onto his plate. Smack. He leaned across the table and looked straight into my eyes. His stare was ice cold. There was no love in him at all. We wished you were never born, Dad said. His voice was low, hard, and completely serious. And now there will be 2 of you. The words hit me like a physical punch to the stomach. My hands stopped shaking. The room suddenly felt very cold. I looked at the 4 people sitting around the table. My own blood, my family. For 29 years I had believed that if I just worked harder, gave them more money, and stayed quiet, they would eventually love me. I thought they were just difficult people. But in that exact moment, the blindfold fell off my eyes. They did not just ignore me. They hated me. And worse, they were happy to use me while wishing I did not exist. The sad, desperate girl who wanted her parents' love died right there in that dining chair. I did not cry. My eyes were completely dry. I felt a strange, freezing calmness wash over my entire body. I slowly stood up from my chair. I looked at Dad. Then I looked at Mom. I smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was a quiet, empty smile. Okay, I said softly. I reached down, picked up my baby's picture, and put it safely back into my purse. I turned my back to them and walked away from the table. I did not look back, even when Mom shouted, "Don't you dare walk away when your father is speaking to you." I walked out the front door and stepped into the freezing Seattle rain. I did not even put my hood up. The cold water felt good on my hot skin. I got into my old Honda Civic, locked the doors, and sat in the dark. My phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a text message from my Aunt Marin, Mom's older sister. Aunt Marin lived nearby and visited often. The text read, "Sutton just messaged me that you are causing a scene at dinner. Eloin, please just keep your head down. You know how your dad gets. Just apologize and keep paying the house bills so he keeps his pride." I stared at the screen. Aunt Marin knew. She knew that Dad was broke. She knew about the secret trust account. She knew I paid for every single piece of food on that table. But she chose to stay quiet just to keep the peace. She watched them abuse me, and she protected them. I turned off my phone and threw it onto the passenger seat. As I sat there listening to the rain, a new, powerful energy filled my chest. I placed my hand on my flat stomach. "I will never let them hurt you," I promised my baby in the dark. Never. I started the car engine. As I drove away from the Mercer Island house, I thought about what Dad had said about giving Sutton $150,000 for her down payment. He planned to take a loan out against the house, but what my family did not know was what I had already done earlier that morning. At 9 a.m., sitting in my Vanguard Trust office, I had noticed unusual activity on Dad's account. I had sent a legal email to the central bank's fraud department. I placed a strict identity and income verification lock on the secret trust account. If Dad tried to apply for a massive loan, the bank would freeze everything. They would demand to see his real tax returns and his real income, which was zero. What I had already set in motion that morning would take everything from them. The countdown to their destruction had officially begun. It was Monday, September 17, 2022. 7:30 a.m. I sat at my desk on the 42nd floor. The city of Seattle was waking up below me. The gray fog rolled over the tall buildings. I held a warm paper cup of decaf coffee. I rubbed my thumb over the small ultrasound picture, which I had taped to the corner of my computer screen. I was not crying anymore. The weak, sad Elowen who wanted her parents' approval was gone. I logged into the main Vanguard banking system. I needed to cut the financial cord connecting me to my family. To do that legally and safely, I had to review the very first original paperwork for the Mercer Island house. I typed the house address into the secure database. The system pulled up the scanned documents from October 2011. I was 18 years old back then, just a freshman starting my first week of college. I scrolled down to page 14 of the heavy mortgage agreement. Suddenly my eyes stopped. My breathing slowed down. At the bottom of the page, right next to Dad's messy signature, was another name. Elowen Elizabeth Copeland. I leaned closer to the bright screen. The letters were written in perfect looping cursive, but I never sign my name in cursive. I always print my letters flat and straight. Dad had forged my signature. Back in 2011, his business was already failing. His credit score was dropping fast. He needed my completely clean, brand new adult credit record and created fake employment documents showing me as a high-paid partner in his firm to trick the bank into giving him the $850,000 house loan. He stole my identity the exact moment I turned 18. My heart hammered in my chest. I quickly scrolled to page 15, the notary and witness page. There, clearly printed in black ink, was the witness name, Maren Sterling. Aunt Maren. She had stood there and watched him commit a crime against her own niece. This was the dark, ugly secret holding their perfect, shiny image together. She protected him because he let her stay in the guest house for free during the summers. I hit the print button. The office printer hummed loudly. I grabbed the 15 warm pages and walked straight to the elevator. I pressed the button for the 45th floor, the legal and compliance department. I walked into the large corner office of Mr. Thatcher Hawthorne. He was 55 years old, wore a crisp dark blue suit, and had neat silver hair. He was the senior corporate attorney for Vanguard. For the last 5 years he had taught me everything I knew about financial law. He was strict, but he always made sure I took my lunch breaks and rested. He cared about my well-being more than my own father did. Thatcher looked up, pushing his glasses down his nose. "Elowen, you are up here early. Is everything okay?" I walked in and pushed his heavy wooden door until it clicked shut. I placed the 15 pages flat on his clean glass desk. Then, I placed my cell phone right next to them. The screen was open to Aunt Maren's text message from Friday night, telling me to keep paying Dad's bills to protect his pride. "I need your help, Thatcher," I said. My voice was completely steady and hard. "My father committed mortgage fraud using my name. My aunt witnessed it, and he is going to a bank this week to try and take out another $150,000 loan against this exact same property." Thatcher frowned deeply. He picked up the papers. His sharp eyes moved quickly across the lines. The large room was totally silent except for the ticking of his silver wall clock. After 2 long minutes, Thatcher took off his glasses. He looked at me, and his eyes were full of a quiet, fierce anger. Not at me, but for me. "Elowen," Thatcher said in a low, serious voice, "this is a major federal crime. If we report this, your father is looking at real prison time. This is not just a family argument. This is identity theft and bank fraud." "I know," I said. I placed a hand gently over my stomach. "I am pregnant, Thatcher. I am doing this completely on my own. I cannot have my name tied to a sinking ship. I refuse to let my child grow up in the shadow of their lies. I need to protect my baby." Thatcher looked at my hand on my stomach. His strict face suddenly softened. He smiled a small, warm smile and nodded slowly. "Congratulations, Elowen. You are going to be a wonderful mother. Hearing those words made a thick lump form in my throat. My own blood called my baby a burden. But this man, my boss, was the very first person in the world to congratulate me. "Thank you," I whispered, blinking back a single tear. Thatcher pulled a yellow legal notepad toward him and clicked his black pen. "Okay, we do not panic. We do not warn them. We build a legal trap that is 100% bulletproof. First, I am hiring a private investigator to pull every single bank record Vance Copeland has from 2011 to today. Second, we let him walk into the bank this week and apply for that new loan." "Why let him apply?" I asked, sitting down in the brown leather chair opposite him. "Because," Thatcher said, his voice turning cold and sharp, "if he tries to borrow money against a house using a forged deed today, it is a brand new crime. We catch him right in the act. But you must not say a single word to them until we are ready." "I won't," I said. I went back downstairs to my desk. I opened my private folder, account #88042-B. I clicked on the automatic $5,200 monthly transfer scheduled for October 1st. I pressed the delete button. Click. The money pipeline was officially cut. My parents were completely on their own now. All I had to do was wait for them to crash into the wall. It was Tuesday, October 1, 2022. At exactly 9 a.m., my cell phone started to buzz on my desk. The screen lit up with a picture of my dad. Normally, seeing his name on my phone made my stomach twist into nervous knots. For years, I would drop whatever I was doing to answer him. I always wanted to be the good daughter. But today, I just sat in my quiet office, sipping my hot green tea, and watched the phone buzz. I let it ring 4 times before I finally picked it up. "Hello, Dad," I said. My voice was flat and calm. "Eloan, finally," Dad said. He was breathing heavily, and there was loud background noise. It sounded like he was at the fancy Mercer Island Golf Club. "Listen, honey, there is a huge mistake with my bank account. I just tried to pay for my breakfast and my card declined." The waiter looked at me like I was a beggar. It was so embarrassing. I looked at the calendar on my computer screen. October 1st, the day my secret $5,200 transfer used to hit his account. But yesterday, I had deleted it. His fake investments had officially dried up. "I am sorry to hear that, Dad," I said softly, looking out the large window at the busy Seattle traffic. "But I do not work at your bank. Have you tried calling their customer service?" There was a short silence on the phone. Then his voice changed. The loud, proud father disappeared, and the angry, controlling man took over. "Do not play stupid with me, Eleanor," he hissed. "You are a senior financial analyst. You know how these systems work. My investments always clear on the first day of the month, always. Call whoever you need to call and fix this glitch right now. Sutton's house closing is next week. I need my accounts looking perfect so Chase Bank will approve my $150,000 loan." He was applying for the loan. He was actually doing it. Thatcher was right. A tiny wave of old guilt washed over me. For a split second, the little girl inside me wanted to transfer the money just to make him stop yelling. It is hard to break a habit you have had your whole life. But then, I placed my hand on my stomach. I felt the very small, tight bump where my baby was growing safely. The guilt vanished, replaced by a wall of solid steel. "Dad," I said, keeping my voice very steady, "I cannot fix your bank account. I do not have access to your money. If you do not have the funds, maybe you should not take out a $150,000 loan." "How dare you speak to me like that?" Dad shouted. His voice was so loud I had to pull the phone away from my ear. "After everything I have done for you, after giving you a roof over your head, you are just bitter because your sister is successful and you are a lonely, single mother. Fix it, Eloan, by tonight." Click. He hung up on me. I put my phone face down on the desk. My hands were shaking a little bit, but not from fear. I was shaking from the adrenaline. He had no idea that the glitch was me walking away. 30 minutes later, my office phone rang. It was Thatcher Hawthorne, my boss. "Eloan, come up to the 45th floor. Gideon is here." I grabbed my notebook and took the elevator up. When I walked into Thatcher's large corner office, there was a new man sitting in the leather chair. He wore a simple brown jacket and had tired, sharp eyes. "Eloan, this is Gideon Rourke," Thatcher said. "He is a private investigator. I asked him to look deep into your father's financial history." Gideon stood up and shook my hand firmly. "Nice to meet you, Eloan. Please, sit down. I found some things you need to see." Gideon opened a thick manila folder and spread several printed pages across the glass desk. "Your father went into a Chase Bank branch yesterday afternoon," Gideon explained, pointing to a document. "He formally applied for a $150,000 home equity loan using the Mercer Island house as collateral." "Did they approve it?" I asked, my heart beating faster. No, Thatcher answered, leaning forward. Because of the security lock you placed on your name last week, the bank's system froze his application. They told him he needs to bring in his original physical tax returns and prove his income. He doesn't have any income, I whispered. Exactly, Gideon said. But that is not the worst part. Look at this. Gideon slid a yellow paper toward me. It was a bank statement from 3 years ago. When your father's business failed, Gideon said, his voice quiet and serious. He owed $80,000 to some very angry private lenders. To pay them off, he didn't just forge your signature on the house. He also opened 3 credit cards in your Aunt Marin's name. My eyes widened. I stared at the paper. Aunt Marin knows? She knows, Thatcher said softly. Gideon found out that Vance pays Marin $1,000 a month in cash to keep her quiet about the fraud. That is why she always defends him. She is not just a silent watcher, Elowen. She is being paid to hide his crimes. The room felt like it was spinning. My own aunt, the woman who bought me ice cream when I was a little girl. She watched my dad destroy my financial future, and she got paid for it. The betrayal was so deep it made me feel sick to my stomach. We have him, Thatcher said gently, tapping the papers. The moment he tries to fake his tax documents to get this new loan, it becomes a federal crime. We just have to wait. I looked down at the forged signature on the paper. I thought about Dad's angry phone call this morning. He thought he could still control me. He thought I was still the weak scapegoat. He was completely wrong. It was Friday, October 4th, 2022, 6:30 p.m. I stood in the bright, busy aisles of Trader Joe's. I placed a bag of fresh spinach and a bottle of prenatal vitamins into my red shopping cart. I was trying to eat better now. Every bite I took was for the little life growing inside me. My phone started ringing from inside my coat pocket. I pulled it out. The screen showed a picture of my mother, Blythe. I took a slow, deep breath. I pushed my cart into a quiet corner near the milk fridge and answered. Hello, Mom, I said calmly. Elowen, darling, Mom said. Her voice was soft, sweet, and trembling. It was the voice she used when she wanted people to feel sorry for her. I am so glad you answered. Your father is very sick. I held the phone tighter. Sick? What is wrong? It is his blood pressure, she sighed heavily. He is so stressed, Elowen. The bank is being horrible to him. They will not give him the $150,000 for Sutton's house. Sutton has been crying in her room all day. She is going to lose her dream house in Bellevue because of this silly bank error. She paused, waiting for me to jump in and offer to fix it. I stayed completely quiet. The cold air from the milk fridge blew against my face. When I didn't speak, Mom cleared her throat and continued. Elowen, we need a small favor, just a tiny loan. Can you transfer $10,000 to our account? Just until your father's investments clear up. You make good money at Vanguard. You do not even have a husband to spend it on. Please, help your family. A few months ago, hearing that sweet begging voice would have broken my heart. I would have felt guilty and sent the money instantly. But now, all I heard was the manipulation. She did not care about my life. She just wanted my wallet to make her golden child stop crying. I cannot do that, Mom, I said. My voice was gentle but firm like a rock. I do not have $10,000 to give you. The sweet voice vanished instantly. The mask fell off. You selfish, ungrateful girl, Mom hissed. Her voice was suddenly sharp and full of poison. We raised you. We fed you. Sutton deserves that house, and you are sitting on piles of money doing nothing. You have always been jealous of her. I am not jealous, Mom, I said softly. I just will not pay for her house. Do not bother coming to Sunday dinner, she snapped. You are not welcome here right now. Click. She hung up. I lowered the phone. A single tear rolled down my cheek, but I quickly wiped it away. I looked down at my flat stomach and gently rubbed it. We are okay, I thought to my baby. We do not need them. 3 days later, on Monday, October 7th, 2022, I was back in Thatcher Hawthorne's office on the 45th floor. The private investigator, Gideon, was sitting on the leather sofa. He held a thick white envelope in his hands. He looked up at me with a serious expression. He did it, Elowen, Gideon said quietly. He opened the envelope and pulled out a stack of papers. This morning at 9:15 a.m., your father walked into the Chase Bank branch in downtown Seattle. He handed the loan officer 3 years of fake tax returns. He completely invented a fake consulting business to show he makes $200,000 a year. Thatcher leaned back in his heavy desk chair. He took off his silver glasses and rubbed his eyes. He crossed the line. Submitting fake tax documents to a federally backed bank to secure a loan is a massive crime. It is wire fraud and bank fraud. What happens now? I asked. My hands felt cold. Seeing the proof on paper made it all so real. The man who raised me was a criminal. Now the trap is fully set, Thatcher explained. Chase Bank's fraud department will process these documents. It usually takes them a few weeks to verify everything with the government. When they find out the tax returns are fake, they will contact the police. Gideon pointed to another piece of paper. I also found out that Aunt Marin co-signed the fake tax documents as his accountant. She is fully trapped in this mess with him now. My aunt, the woman who told me to just keep paying the bills and be quiet. She had tied her own hands to his sinking ship just to keep getting her $1,000 a month. We need to control how this comes out, Thatcher said, looking at me. If the police just show up at his house, he will try to blame you, Elowen, because your name is still on the original house deed from 2011. We have to expose him publicly, with all the evidence, before he can twist the story. I looked at the calendar on Thatcher's wall. Next month was November. Thanksgiving, I said quietly. Thatcher and Gideon both looked at me. Every year my parents host a huge Thanksgiving dinner, I explained. My voice grew stronger. The whole family comes. Aunts, uncles, cousins, family friends. My dad loves to stand at the head of the table and act like the perfect rich father. Sutton will be there. Aunt Marin will be there. Thatcher nodded slowly. A sharp, smart look came into his eyes. It is the perfect place. We will have all the legal documents ready. We give him no place to hide. I looked out the tall glass window at the dark gray clouds gathering over the city. A storm was coming, and I was going to be the one to bring it inside their perfect house. It was Saturday, November 7th, 2022. The morning air in Seattle was crisp and cold. I sat on the wooden floor of my small 2-bedroom apartment in the Queen Anne neighborhood. I had rented it 3 years ago, but for the first time it actually felt like home. There were no expensive crystal chandeliers here, just warm yellow lamps, a soft gray rug, and the smell of cinnamon candles. I was holding a silver screwdriver, trying to put together a small white baby crib. I was 17 weeks pregnant now. My stomach had a small round bump that I could not hide anymore. As I reached for a screw, I suddenly stopped. Deep inside my belly, I felt a tiny, soft pop. It felt like a butterfly tapping against my skin. I dropped the screwdriver and pressed both hands to my stomach. I waited, holding my breath. A few seconds later, there it was again. Pop. My baby was moving. A massive, warm wave of love washed over me. I sat there on the floor and smiled until my cheeks hurt. My family had not called me in exactly 26 days. My mother, my father, and my sister had completely cut me out of their lives because I refused to give them money. I was banished. But sitting there, feeling my baby kick for the very first time, I realized I was not lonely at all. Suddenly there was a gentle knock on my front door. I slowly stood up, holding my lower back, and opened the door. It was Thatcher, my boss, and Gideon, the private investigator. Thatcher was holding a large brown paper bag that smelled amazing. "Elowen," Thatcher said with a warm smile. "Gideon and I were working on your case at the office. We decided you needed a proper lunch. I brought hot chicken noodle soup and fresh bread from that bakery you like on 4th Avenue. "You did not have to do that," I said, stepping aside to let them in. "Nonsense," Thatcher said strictly, walking straight to my small kitchen. He started taking out bowls. "You are eating for 2 now. You need real food, not just crackers while you build furniture." I watched Thatcher pour the hot soup into a bowl. In my entire life, my own father had never once brought me a meal or asked if I was eating well. But here was my boss, making sure I was taken care of. We sat around my small wooden kitchen table. The soup was hot and delicious. Gideon opened his silver laptop and turned the screen toward me. "We found the final piece of the puzzle, Elowen," Gideon said quietly. His sharp eyes looked very serious. "I wanted to make absolutely sure your father could not blame the 2011 house forgery on you. So, I dug into the notary who stamped the paperwork 11 years ago." Gideon pointed to a scanned page on his screen. "The notary's name is Creed Mercer. He lost his license 5 years ago for doing shady business, but he kept a strict personal logbook of his meetings. I managed to get a legal copy of it yesterday." I stopped eating. "What does the book say?" Thatcher leaned forward. "On October 15th, 2011, Creed wrote down exactly who was in the room. He wrote, 'Meeting with Vance Copeland and Marin Sterling.' Vance signed for his daughter Elowen, paid $500 cash extra for the stamp." My breath caught in my throat. There it was, written proof in black and white ink. "But that is not all," Gideon said softly. He pressed a button on his keyboard. I tracked down the aggressive private lenders your dad owed $80,000 to back then. One of the lenders kept an old answering machine. I pulled the archive from 2011. Listen to this voicemail your dad left them. A crackly audio recording started to play from the laptop speakers. Gruff voice. Vance, time is up. We need the $80,000 by Friday, or we take your cars. Then my father's voice filled my kitchen. He sounded younger, but just as cold and arrogant as he did today. Dad's voice. Relax, you will get your money. I just secured an $850,000 house loan today. I put the entire mortgage in my 18-year-old daughter's name. She is completely clueless. She has no idea. I will pull the cash out of the house next month and pay you. The recording stopped. The kitchen was totally silent except for the rain hitting my window. Hearing my father call me completely clueless while he secretly destroyed my adult life, it felt like a knife twisting in my chest. But this time, I did not bleed. The pain quickly turned into a cold, hard armor. I looked at Thatcher. He slid a thick, dark red folder across the table toward me. Inside this folder, Thatcher said quietly, is the notary logbook, the USB drive with that audio recording, the fake tax returns he gave to Chase Bank last week, and the documents proving Aunt Marin took money to hide it all. I rested my hand on the heavy red folder. It felt like holding a bomb. Thanksgiving is in 3 weeks, I said, my voice steady and low. They invited the whole extended family to Mercer Island. Everyone will be there. Are you ready to do this? Gideon asked gently. I looked down at my stomach, thinking of the tiny butterfly flutters. I thought of the future I was going to build for my child. A future with no lies, no fake smiles, and no users. I looked back up at the 2 men sitting at my table. I am absolutely ready. It was Thursday, November 24th, 2022. Thanksgiving Day. At 2 p.m., I stood in front of the tall mirror in my apartment. I was 20 weeks pregnant now. The small bump was clearly visible. I wore a dark blue maternity dress and a sharp black wool coat. I did not dress like a sad, forgotten daughter. I dressed like a senior financial analyst going to the most important meeting of her life. I picked up the thick, dark red folder from my kitchen table. It felt heavy in my hands. I placed it carefully inside my black leather bag. I walked out the door and got into my old silver Honda Civic. The drive from Queen Anne to Mercer Island took 30 minutes. The sky was dark gray, and heavy rain hit my windshield. My heart beat in a steady, slow rhythm. I was not scared. The weak Elowen who used to cry in this car was completely gone. I turned onto my parents' street. The long, curved driveway was packed with shiny, expensive cars. I saw my uncle's Range Rover, my cousin's Tesla, and Sutton's brand-new white BMW. I parked my old Civic right at the very front, blocking Dad's leased black Mercedes. I turned off the engine. I closed my eyes for 2 seconds, took a deep breath, and stepped out into the cold rain. When I opened the heavy wooden front door, a wall of warm air hit my face. The house smelled incredibly rich: roasted turkey, buttery mashed potatoes, expensive wine, and sweet cinnamon pies. I could hear loud laughter and the clinking of crystal glasses coming from the main living room. I took off my wet coat and hung it up. I held my black bag tightly and walked down the wide hallway. There were at least 30 people in the massive living room. Aunts, uncles, cousins, and Dad's wealthy golf friends. The fireplace was roaring. Dad was standing right in the center of the room. He wore a perfectly tailored gray suit. He held a glass of dark red wine in one hand, smiling a massive, proud smile as he told a story to my Uncle Silas. What? And so I told the bank manager. You cannot rush quality investments. Dad laughed loudly. The men around him laughed too, nodding with respect. On the velvet sofa, Sutton was showing her new diamond earrings to our younger cousins. Mom was walking around with a silver tray of cheese, wearing a sparkling green dress, soaking up all the compliments about her beautiful home. And then I took a step forward into the light. Aunt Marin was the first person to see me. She was standing near the fireplace, taking a sip of white wine. When she saw my face, she froze completely. Her hand shook, and a drop of wine spilled onto the white rug. She looked terrified. Then Mom turned around. Her fake, sweet smile instantly dropped. Her eyes widened with pure anger. She quickly put the silver tray down on a table and power walked over to me. She grabbed my arm hard, her perfectly painted nails digging into my skin. "What are you doing here?" Mom hissed in a harsh whisper, leaning close to my ear so the guests would not hear. "I told you not to come. You are going to ruin everything. Leave right now before your father sees you." I gently, but very firmly pulled my arm out of her grip. "I live in this state, Mom," I said in a normal, calm voice. I have just as much right to be here as anyone else. The sound of my voice made Dad turn around. The loud laughter in the room slowly stopped. The chatter died down. One by one, the 30 guests turned to look at the doorway. Dad's face turned completely red. He put his wine glass down on the mantelpiece. Clack. He marched over to me, standing incredibly close, trying to use his height to scare me. "Eloan," Dad said, his voice low and dangerous. "You did not send the money for Sutton's house. You ignored my phone calls. You are a disgrace to this family. You will not stand in my house and embarrass me in front of our guests. Get out." I looked up at him. I did not blink. I did not look at the floor. "Your house?" I asked softly. The room was so quiet now that the only sound was the crackling fire. "Yes, my house," Dad snapped, losing his temper a little bit. He pointed his finger at the door. "The house I bought, the house I pay for. Now leave." I slowly reached into my black leather bag. My fingers touched the cold, smooth plastic of the dark red folder. I pulled it out. I did not yell. I did not cry. I just walked past him, moving toward the long, formal dining table in the center of the room. Every single eye in the house watched me. I stopped at the head of the table, the seat Dad always sat in to carve the turkey. I placed the thick red folder flat on the shiny mahogany wood. "Let's talk about this house, Dad," I said clearly, making sure every guest in the room could hear me. "And let's talk about who really pays for it." The heavy silence in the room was suffocating. Nobody moved. The 30 guests just stared at me, then looked at my father, and then back at me. Dad let out a short, loud laugh. It was a fake, nervous laugh. He turned to his wealthy friends and spread his hands. "I am so sorry, everyone," Dad said, shaking his head with a sad, gentle smile. "My daughter Eloan has been dealing with some severe mental health struggles lately. The pregnancy hormones are making her very confused and paranoid. Please, just ignore her." He slowly walked toward me, his eyes wide and dark. "Come on, Eloan," he whispered, reaching out to grab the red folder. "Let's go into the kitchen. Do not make a fool of yourself." Before his hand could touch the folder, I slid it out of his reach. I looked right past him and locked eyes with Uncle Silas. Uncle Silas was Dad's older brother. He was a retired judge, a very serious man who always demanded honesty. "Uncle Silas," I said calmly, "can you come here, please?" Uncle Silas frowned. He put his wine glass down, adjusted his thick reading glasses, and walked slowly to the dining table. I opened the red folder. I pulled out the thick, stapled 2011 mortgage agreement. I slid it across the smooth mahogany wood toward him. "Uncle Silas, please read the name of the primary borrower on page 14, I said. Uncle Silas picked up the paper. The room was so quiet you could hear the rain hitting the glass windows. He read the page in silence, his gray eyebrows pulled together in deep confusion. "Vance," Uncle Silas said, looking up at my dad. "This document says Eloan Elizabeth Copeland is the sole owner and borrower for this house, and her signature, it is in cursive. Eloan only prints her letters." Dad's face lost a little bit of its color. He cleared his throat. "Silas, you know how these banking errors happen. I just put her name on it to help her build credit when she turned 18. I am a good father." "Is that true, Dad?" I asked. My voice did not shake. "Because my private investigator found the notary who stamped this paper 11 years ago." I pulled out the copy of the notary's logbook. I placed it gently on top of the mortgage agreement. "Creed Mercer lost his license 5 years ago," I said loudly, looking around the room at all the aunts, uncles, and family friends. "But he kept a record of every meeting. Look at the highlighted line, Uncle Silas." Uncle Silas leaned closer. He read the line out loud. His strong voice echoed in the silent room. "Meeting with Vance Copeland and Marin Sterling. Vance signed for his daughter Eloan, paid $500 cash extra for the stamp." A loud gasp rippled through the guests. Mom stepped forward, her face completely pale. "Eloan, stop this right now. You are making up lies to ruin Sutton's special day." "Sutton's special day?" I asked, looking at my sister. Sutton was shrinking back into the velvet sofa, looking terrified. "You mean her new $1.2 million house? The one Dad promised to give her a $150,000 down payment for?" I pulled out a thick stack of bank statements from the red folder. They were covered in green highlighter marks. I spread them out across the large table like a deck of cards. "My father's consulting business failed years ago," I said. The guests stared at the papers in shock. "For the last 24 months, he has not made a single dollar. Every time he bragged about his amazing investments, he was lying. Because on the first day of every month, I secretly transferred $5,200 from my own Vanguard salary into his hidden account. I paid the $3,100 mortgage. I bought the roasted turkey you are all about to eat. Shut up, Dad roared. The charming, wealthy gentleman was completely gone. His face was bright red with pure panic. The mask had completely shattered. He slammed his fists on the table, making the plates jump. You ungrateful little liar. I gave you life, and then you stole mine, I said softly, but the words cut like a knife. I looked across the room at Aunt Marin. She was backed up against the cold stone fireplace, trembling. She looked like she wanted to disappear into the wall. Aunt Marin, I called out. Everyone turned to look at her. Tell them why you were in the room when he forged my signature in Tone 11. Tell them about the $1,000 cash he pays you every single month to keep your mouth shut. Uncle Silas turned to his sister, his face full of disgust. Marin, is this true? Did you help him steal this girl's identity? Aunt Marin burst into tears. She covered her face with her hands and sobbed loudly. I had to. I needed the money. I am so sorry, Elowen. I am so sorry. Her confession hit the room like a bomb. The final piece of their perfect fake picture fell to the floor and smashed into a million pieces. The guests started whispering loudly. Some of Dad's wealthy friends actually put their coats on and started walking toward the front door. They wanted nothing to do with this mess. But I was not done. The biggest secret was still in the folder. The living room was in complete chaos. Aunt Marin was crying loudly by the fireplace. The wealthy guests were putting on their coats and rushing out the front door as fast as they could. They did not say goodbye. They just wanted to escape the ugly truth. Dad stood frozen in the middle of the room. His expensive gray suit suddenly looked too big for him. His face was pale and sweating. The proud, arrogant man who had yelled at me 5 minutes ago was gone. Now he just looked old and scared. But I was not finished. I reached into the dark red folder one last time. I pulled out a stack of yellow papers. They were the documents Gideon had found. I slid them across the table to Uncle Silas. Last week, I said loudly, making sure my voice carried over the sound of the rain outside. Dad tried to get the $150,000 for Sutton's new house. He went to Chase Bank in downtown Seattle. But because he has no real income, he gave the bank completely fake tax returns. He invented a fake company to trick them. Uncle Silas picked up the yellow papers. He read them quickly. As a retired judge, he knew exactly what he was looking at. He dropped the papers back onto the table like they were on fire. Vance, Uncle Silas said. His deep voice shook with absolute disgust. This is a major federal crime. Submitting fake tax forms to a bank is wire fraud. When Chase Bank's fraud department processes this, they are going to call the police. You are going to prison. When Dad heard the word prison, his knees actually gave out. He grabbed the back of a wooden dining chair to stop himself from falling to the floor. He looked at me, his eyes wide with pure panic. Elowen, Dad gasped. He tried to force a smile, but his lips were shaking. Elowen, please. You are a senior financial analyst. You know people at the banks. You can fix this. Just make a few calls. Tell them it was a paperwork mistake. Please, honey, I am your father. I just stared at him. You are not my father, I said softly. You are just a man who stole my name. Suddenly, Mom rushed forward. She pushed past Uncle Silas and tried to grab my hands. Her face was a mess. Black makeup ran down her cheeks mixed with heavy tears. She tried to use her old, sweet, begging voice. Elowen, my sweet, beautiful baby girl, Mom cried. She fell to her knees right in front of me, holding her hands together. Please, he made a mistake. We were just trying to survive. You cannot let them take him away. We are your family. We love you so much. Think about the good times. I looked down at the woman kneeling on the expensive white rug. For a second I thought about the little girl I used to be. The girl who waited years to hear her mother say, I love you. But hearing those words now just made me feel sick. They were completely empty. I stepped back, pulling my hands away from her. A month ago, I said, my voice completely cold and steady. I sat at this exact table. I told you I was pregnant. I showed you a picture of your first grandchild. Do you remember what you said to me? Mom froze. Her fake crying stopped instantly. She looked up at me with wide, terrified eyes. I looked at Dad, then at Mom, and finally at Sutton, who was hiding on the sofa. You called my baby a burden, I said, letting the heavy words echo in the silent room. You said you wished I was never born. You told me Sutton buying a house was the only thing worth celebrating. I placed my hand gently over my stomach. The tiny butterfly flutters were there, giving me strength. Well, you do not have to worry about me being a burden ever again, I said. I pulled out one final piece of paper from the very back of the red folder. It was a formal legal notice from Vanguard Trust Group. Because my name is on the 2011 mortgage, I explained calmly. I am legally the owner of this house. Yesterday morning, I formally signed the property over to be sold on the market to clear the debt you owe. I am serving you with a formal 30-day eviction notice. You will get the certified mail tomorrow. You have exactly 30 days to pack your clothes and get out of my house. Total, absolute silence fell over the room again. The smell of the roasted turkey now just smelled like burnt grease. Dad let go of the chair. He looked around his beautiful, rich living room, the crystal chandelier, the huge glass windows, the velvet sofas. It was all gone. His fake kingdom was burning to the ground, and he had lit the match himself. I closed the empty red folder. I picked up my black leather bag and put the folder inside. I did not feel sad. I did not feel angry anymore. I just felt incredibly light, as if a giant rock had been lifted off my chest. I turned my back on them and walked slowly toward the front door. It was Tuesday, February 18, 2023. 3 long months had passed since the Thanksgiving dinner. I was now 32 weeks pregnant. My belly was perfectly round, and my baby kicked hard every time I ate a sweet strawberry. I was sitting in the white rocking chair in my baby's new room inside my Queen Anne apartment. The walls were painted a soft, warm yellow. The small room smelled like fresh baby powder and clean laundry. Just an hour ago, my boss, Thatcher, and his wife, Delphine, had stopped by. They brought 2 big boxes of diapers and a soft pink knitted blanket. You call us day or night when it is time to go to the hospital, Elowen, Delphine had said, holding my hand warmly. We have our phones on loud. Thank you, I had smiled, feeling a deep, true warmth in my chest. Thatcher and Delphine did not share my last name. We did not share the same blood. But when I needed a ride to the doctor, or help carrying heavy groceries up the stairs, they were the ones who actually showed up. I learned that true connection is built on actions and care, not just birth certificates. Now the apartment was quiet. The steady Seattle rain washed the glass windows. I took a sip of my warm chamomile tea. On the small wooden table next to me sat a plain, cheap white envelope. It had arrived in the mail yesterday. I looked at the return address. It was not the fancy Mercer Island mansion. That house belonged to Chase Bank now. The address on the envelope was a small, low-rent apartment complex in Tacoma, 30 miles south of the city. I opened it slowly. The paper inside was thin. The blue ink handwriting was messy and shaking. It was from Dad. Dear Elowen, I am writing this from a tiny kitchen table in a 1-bedroom apartment. The heating barely works here. Your mother is working the night shift at a grocery store checkout line just so we can buy basic food. Sutton packed her expensive bags the exact day the bank changed the locks. She moved to California to stay with friends, and she will not answer our phone calls anymore. My federal court date for the bank fraud is next month. Because the evidence was bulletproof, my lawyer made me sign a plea deal to avoid a 10-year sentence. I will likely spend 18 months in a minimum security prison. I am terrified, Elowen. Sitting in this cold room, I finally realized something. The shiny, rich world I built is completely gone. When the money disappeared, all my golf friends disappeared too. The only person who ever truly cared about us, who quietly kept us warm and safe while we treated her so badly, was you, and I pushed you away to protect my own foolish pride. I am so deeply sorry for the pain I caused you. I know I was cruel. I know I do not deserve your time. I am not asking you for money or a place to stay. I just wanted you to know that I finally see the truth. I hope my grandchild has a much better parent than I ever was. Dad. I read the letter 3 times. A single quiet tear fell down my cheek and landed on the thin paper. A year ago, reading those sad words would have made me rush to my car. I would have driven straight to Tacoma, handed him my credit card, and tried to fix his broken life. I would have let him step right back on my shoulders. But today, sitting in the warm yellow room, I just felt a quiet, human sadness for him. I did not hate him anymore. The burning anger was completely gone. He was just a sad, tired man who traded his real family for a fake illusion of wealth. I folded the letter carefully. I opened the top drawer of the white wooden dresser and placed the letter safely inside. I decided right then that I forgave him. I forgave him because I refused to carry dark, heavy anger into my new baby's life. But I also knew that forgiveness does not mean opening your front door to the person who burned your house down. I had built a strong, safe wall around my life, and I was going to keep it exactly where it was. It was Thursday, April 17, 2023. Exactly 1 year, almost to the day, since that awful Friday dinner where my sister announced she was buying a house. Today, the weather in Seattle was completely different. The dark gray clouds were gone. Bright, warm spring sunlight poured through the large glass window of room 412 at Swedish Medical Center. I sat up slowly in the comfortable hospital bed. My body was tired and very sore, but I did not care about the pain at all, because resting gently against my chest, wrapped tightly in a soft white and pink blanket, was my daughter. I named her Avon. She was so tiny. She had 10 perfect little fingers and a small head of dark hair. She was sleeping peacefully, her tiny chest moving up and down with every breath. I traced her soft cheek with my finger. She smelled like sweet milk and clean soap. She was perfect. She was mine. The heavy wooden door to my room slowly opened. It was Thatcher and his wife, Delphine. Thatcher was holding a giant pink teddy bear, and Delphine held a beautiful bunch of bright yellow sunflowers. "Look at this little angel," Delphine whispered. She walked over quietly, her eyes shining with happy tears. "Oh, Elowen, she is absolutely beautiful." Thatcher smiled his warm, proud smile. He gently patted my shoulder. "You did amazing, Elowen. We are so proud of you. I already started a college savings account for her this morning." I laughed softly, holding Avon a little closer to my heart. "You did not have to do that, Thatcher. Family takes care of family," he said simply. Those 5 words hung in the warm air. Family takes care of family. I looked at Thatcher and Delphine. They were not my parents. They did not share my DNA or my last name, but they were here. They had supported me, protected me, and fed me when my own blood threw me away. My real parents were sitting in a cold, dark apartment 30 miles away, paying the heavy price for their own lies. Dad was waiting for his prison sentence to begin. Mom was working the night shift just to pay for electricity. Sutton had run away to California, proving she only loved them when they had a gold credit card to hand her. They had built a beautiful fake house on a foundation of lies, and the moment a real storm came, it all washed away into the mud. I heard from my lawyer last week that the bank finally sold the big house on Mercer Island. A nice young couple bought it. They are going to fill those big glass windows with real laughter, not fake smiles and secret ledgers. That house is just wood and glass to me now. It has zero power over my mind. I used to think my life was a tragedy because I was the family scapegoat. I used to cry myself to sleep, wondering why my mother and father could not just love me like they loved my sister. But looking back at the long, painful road, I finally understood the truth. Being pushed out of their toxic circle was not a punishment. It was a rescue mission. The pain of their betrayal was exactly what I needed to wake up and cut the heavy chains pulling me underwater. If they had just been a little bit kinder, I might have spent the rest of my life paying their bills and starving myself for a crumb of their fake affection. I leaned my head back against the soft white pillow and looked out the bright window. The sky was a clear, beautiful blue. The long, freezing winter was finally over. I picked up Avon's tiny hand and kissed her soft knuckles. "I promise you something, my sweet girl," I whispered to her. My voice was completely steady and full of pure, real love. "You will never have to earn your place at my table. You will never have to buy my love, and you will never, ever be a burden." Avon let out a tiny soft sigh in her sleep and squeezed my finger tightly. My old life was completely gone, turned to ashes in a rusty fire pit, but from those ashes I had built something real, something strong, something true. I closed my eyes and smiled. I was completely safe, and I was finally home. Thank you for staying until this point. It means everything to me. Truly, if this story hits close to home, whether you have been the one writing the checks or you have been the invisible one at the dinner table, or you are still trying to figure out how to set that final boundary, leave me a comment below. Tell me, have you ever been the person keeping everyone afloat while someone else got the glory? I read every single one. If you haven't already, hit like and subscribe, and if you want another story about setting boundaries, I linked it in the description. It's good. See you there.